إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم،
پناہ مانگتا ہوں میں اللہ کی شیطان مردود سے۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم،
شروع نام سے اللہ کے جو بڑا مہربان نہایت رحم کرنے والا ہے۔
يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير۔
قریب ہے کہ بجلی ان کی آنکھوں کو چکا چوند کر دے کہ جب وہ چمک جائے تو چل پڑیں اور جب اندھیرا ہو جائے تو ٹھہر جائیں۔ خدا چاہے تو ان کی سماعت و بصارت کو بھی ختم کر سکتا ہے کہ وہ ہر شے پر قدرت و اختیار رکھنے والا ہے۔
يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون۔
اے انسانوں، پروردگار کی عبادت کرو جس نے تمہیں بھی پیدا کیا ہے اور تم سے پہلے والوں کو بھی خلق کیا ہے، شاید کہ تم اسی طرح متقی اور پرہیزگار بن جاؤ۔
الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون۔
اس پروردگار نے تمہارے لیے زمین کا فرش اور آسمان کا شامیانہ بنایا ہے، اور پھر آسمان سے پانی برسا کر تمہاری روزی کے لیے زمین سے پھل نکالے ہیں، لہٰذا اس کے لیے جان بوجھ کر کسی کو ہمسر اور مثل نہ بناؤ۔
وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ۔
اگر تمہیں اس کلام کے بارے میں کوئی شک ہے جسے ہم نے اپنے بندے پر نازل کیا ہے تو اس کا جیسا ایک ہی سورہ لے آؤ، اور اللہ کے علاوہ جتنے تمہارے مددگار ہیں سب کو بلاؤ اگر تم اپنے دعوے اور خیال میں سچے ہو۔
فَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ۔
اور اگر تم ایسا نہ کر سکے اور یقیناً نہ کر سکو گے تو اس آگ سے ڈرو جس کا ایندھن انسان اور پتھر ہے اور جسے کافرین کے لیے مہیا کیا گیا ہے۔
وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِن ثَمَرَةٍ رِّزْقًا قَالُوا هَٰذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِن قَبْلُ وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُّطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ۔
پیغمبر آپ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ وسلم ایمان اور عمل صالح والوں کو بشارت دے دیں کہ ان کے لیے ایسے باغات ہیں جن کے نیچے نہریں جاری ہیں، انہیں جب بھی وہاں کوئی پھل دیا جائے گا تو وہ یہی کہیں گے کہ یہ تو ہمیں پہلے مل چکا ہے، حالانکہ وہ صرف اس کے مشابہ ہوگا، اور ان کے لیے وہاں پاکیزہ بیویاں بھی ہوں گی، اور انہیں اس میں ہمیشہ رہنا بھی ہے۔
إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين۔
اللہ اس بات پر کوئی شرم محسوس نہیں کرتا کہ وہ مچھر یا اس سے بھی کمتر کی مثال بیان کرے۔ اب جو صاحبان ایمان ہیں وہ جانتے ہیں کہ یہ سب پروردگار کی طرف سے برحق ہے، اور جنہوں نے کفر اختیار کیا ہے وہ یہ کہتے ہیں کہ آخر ان مثالوں سے خدا کا مقصد کیا ہے۔ خدا اسی طرح بہت سے لوگوں کو گمراہی میں چھوڑ دیتا ہے اور بہت سو کو ہدایت دے دیتا ہے، اور گمراہی صرف انہی کا حصہ ہے جو فاسق ہے۔
الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون۔
جو خدا کے ساتھ مضبوط عہد کرنے کے بعد بھی اسے توڑ دیتے ہیں، اور جسے خدا نے جوڑنے کا حکم دیا ہے اسے کاٹ دیتے ہیں اور زمین میں فساد برپا کرتے ہیں، یہی وہ لوگ ہیں جو حقیقتاً خسارے والے ہیں۔
كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون۔
آخر تم لوگ کس طرح کفر اختیار کرتے ہو جبکہ تم بے جان تھے، اور خدا نے تمہیں زندگی دی ہے، اور پھر موت بھی دے گا، اور پھر زندہ بھی کرے گا، اور پھر اس کی بارگاہ میں پلٹا کر لے جائے جاؤ گے۔
هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن 7 سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم۔
وہ خدا وہ ہے جس نے زمین کے تمام ذخیروں کو تم ہی لوگوں کے لیے پیدا کیا ہے، اس کے بعد اس نے آسمان کا رخ کیا تو 7 مستحکم آسمان بنا دیے، اور وہ ہر شے کا جاننے والا ہے۔
Over to you, Yunus.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Now I request Moulana. Thank you, Abbas, for the Quran and translation.
You are
And
most welcome.
inshallah, we will start our program with the Dr. Shaeba Rizvi giving the explanation of Nahjul Balagha, how to read it, how to understand it, and make it easy for everyday life to implement. Moulana, please start.
جزاkallah, shukriya. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغه مدحته القائلون وليحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن، الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود، فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووطد بالصخور ميدان أرضه، أول الدين معرفته، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خير المبشرين والمنذرين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على
محمد وآل
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد قال علي بن أبي طالب الصلاة والسلام عليه أول الدين معرفته. Dearest Momineen, Mominat, my respected elders, my beloved peers, cherished young ones, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I beg your forgiveness on this day. I know I joined 2 minutes late. I'm sure that was noticed. My laptop seemed to be not cooperating with me this morning, so I initially joined on my phone. Then finally, the laptop decided to cooperate. A little bit of turning it off and on. It's interesting how the machinery we have created is such that when we turn it off and turn it back on again, some things reset, and what wasn't working somehow manages to work. This is a layman, an ignorant one of technology and information technology. This is my hack of it, troubleshooting, turn it on and off. It is not unlike sleep in our body. Our body, when we turn it on and off, and then on again, we do notice that the next day brings corrections, the next day brings opportunities, and we also get refreshed. So without further ado, I'll jump into the topic as we continue it. Last week, we were talking about the first sermon. My intentions initially had been to go through the first sermon in 3 days. That was what I had discussed with our organizers. And as I said that, I was wary that it would not happen. And here we are on our third Sunday, and I find that I am only in the first third of Nahjul Balagha. However, I don't think that it's time wasted. I'm hopeful. The reason being that it's better to talk about something properly than to rush through it. It's better to do one thing properly than to do two things improperly. It's better to be thorough in one task. And that is what our deen teaches us as well, that whatever we do, we have to do with full intention. We have to do with full purity. And what we notice from Nahjul Balagha in this first sermon is that our intentions are very important. Last week, the first week, our homework about what we desire and what we don't desire. I was hoping that as you contemplated upon that, we noticed also, and of course, many of you know better than me, but we also noticed that we are limited. We are limited in what we can do and what we can achieve and what is the capability of our physicality. Therefore, when it comes to a human being accepting what is their true ability, what are they capable of, and they have control over, it is very little. And the one thing that we truly have control over is our intention, because we do not know if our intention will come into fruition. We do not know if I intend to do something, if it will be accomplished or not. But what I can do is intend. Therefore, what we see is our intention is so important in everything. Every place, I urge my young ones, every place you go, every action you do, every day you do something, and any moment in your life, look at your intention. Ask yourself, what is my intention as I do this? And when you question yourself about your intention, you will be able to purify it. You will realize that within there can be mixed many reasons. You go to school in the morning. Perhaps now in the pandemic era, many areas are not yet, but hopefully it'll come back to normal, inshallah. And there was a time when you were. Or you get up to join your class in your home. Irrelevant which aspect it is, but you are doing something. When you're going to school, the question is, what is your intention? Why are you going? And you will notice that there's many intentions within you. Most go to school because I want to meet my friends. Some will go to school, I want to learn. Some will go to school, I look forward to meeting my teacher. They are very inspiring and knowledgeable and I like them. Some will go to school, I look forward to playing this sport in school. There's many, many side reasons. All of those reasons have to do with you. So that means if I'm leaving my home with purely selfish reasons just to do with me, however many they may be, it is not going to allow my intention to be pure. This means that if I leave thinking that I'm going for the sake of Allah, that means that I'm going to school because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon me aql, has bestowed upon me a loving family who have created the situation where I am able to go and learn. And these are the step-by-step processes that Allah wishes me to go through. So for His sake, as it is His will, and it is what He desires of us for us to improve, to gain more knowledge, gain more wisdom, to understand things better. Therefore, I will go to school for this purpose. Now, the student that is going to school for that purpose, everything has changed for them now. Their entire reality is changed. Their perspective is changed because now their intent, their goal, the mark upon which the arrow will hit is different for this one. Now they will not be distracted. They will not be distracted by things that would otherwise entice other people, other children. They will have focus. They will be balanced. They will know what they are doing and why they are there. This is such a big difference. Will they still meet their friends? Yes. Will they still meet their teacher, play their sport, all have fun in the cafeteria? Whatever was in their mind as the desires that were arising within that were influencing their intention. Will it still occur? It will occur. But their intention is main and pure, and that's the focus. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. He says that what I will is what will come to be, and what you will get tired of, but it will not be fulfilled unless you surrender your will to me. And that surrendering of your will to Him is what will allow you to fulfill your will. This means that He will fulfill it, but we must understand that we have to surrender first. That applies in every intention. I gave the example of school. Apply it when you go to visit somebody, you go to the mosque, you go to the Imam Barga, you go to the shopping mall, you go out with your parents, you go to talk to your father or mother or brother or sister. Any intention, any incident, if it is for the sake of Allah, everything that you desire will come to pass. But what you've done is you've given Him top priority. You have put Him in the top level. You have truly acted upon Allahu Akbar. Because oftentimes when we talk about deen and what is being taught in deen, the question becomes, how do we apply this practically? Yeah, but how does that apply to me doing my homework or going to work or solving a problem in my life? It applies because your intention and your perspective are influenced by this. This means that when you say Allahu Akbar, yes, but is He really Akbar? He will be Akbar when He is your priority in all of your intentions. Now you go to sleep because you are tired, but you go to sleep because He's the one who created sleep for you. And He is the one who does not sleep. And because your body has been put under this requirement, so you sleep for His sake. And as you sleep, you thank Him. You say, thank you for creating the day, for allowing me to nourish myself, for creating the night, for allowing it to be a cloak over me as I come into peaceful sleep. And my soul returns to you. And when you sleep, your soul elevates itself and goes to Allah. And it goes up to the arsh in the heavens. Although Allah is everywhere, I don't mean that it goes to Him like He is not here, but it goes into elevated planes of existence. That is why your sleep becomes so important. But if it is for the sake of Allah, it becomes ibadah. Everything we do is ibadah. Sometimes we think of deen and dunya as two separate entities, and there is a balance required between them. Sometimes we think we have to balance our deen and our dunya. It's actually that our dunya needs to be one little speck of our deen. That is the balance. It is not a balance. To call it a balance would be to say there is a scale upon which I have put deen on one side and dunya on one side. And now I will balance these. I will pray and I will, I will also enjoy my life. Well, is enjoying your life and part of being in this dunya and doing the things that Allah has given to you and enjoying the blessings He has given to you not part of your deen? It certainly is. There is no blessing and enjoyment in this world that you would do that is out of deen. So to consider deen and dunya as two separate things is, quite frankly, a misunderstanding and misinterpretation of deen. Deen is what encompasses your entire existence. Deen is your code of ethics. Deen is the reason you are here. Deen is your objective. Deen is your purpose. Deen is your fulfillment. Everything you are doing. And this dunya is but one aspect of your existence. That means that your deen applied before you came here, your deen applied after you leave here, your deen applies here as well. Deen is basically what you have gained in understanding from Allah. As He created you and He is the creator and you are the creation, He has nurtured and nourished you and put His mercy and blessings upon you. And that in its physical form is called deen. That's all deen is. Then not only that did He give you deen, but He gave you these beings who embodied His deen. That means that they are His deen. Therefore, His deen is the Quran. Yes, His deen is the Masumin. His deen is the prophets. When the holy Masumin, salatu wassalamu alayhim, are before us, everything they do is deen. Imam Ali is deen. That means when he stands, that is what Allah wants us to do. When he sits, that is what Allah wants us to do. When he fights, that is what Allah wants us to do. When he prays, that is what Allah wants us to do. Anywhere Imam Ali is found, be it on the pulpit or the battlefield or the home, everything he is doing, that is deen. My young ones, I urge you not to separate your deen and dunya, to understand that it is all part of your existence. And therefore, every moment is deen. Every step you take is deen. And when Imam Ali salatu wassalam says, Avvalud deen, this means the peak of your deen, the purpose of your deen. As you climb the steps of your deen, when do you reach the top rung of this ladder of life of deen? When you realize His ma'rifah. And not only do you realize His ma'rifah, you realize your limitations in His ma'rifah. This ma'rifah is knowledge, this ma'rifah is understanding, this ma'rifah is comprehension. And that is why, if you recall, last week, in our homework, I asked you to look at what do you know and come up with 3 statements of things that you know for sure. And when we say we know something, then that means that we believe it. That means that our existence is accepting this other existence as a reality. And therefore, let's start with a simple example and looking at that homework. For example, there is an apple in your hand. And as you look upon this apple and you are eating the apple, perhaps a statement may come of truth from you. And you may say that I'm eating an apple. I have an apple in my hand. This is an apple, that is a fact. And you accept that as fact. And then why are you accepting it as fact? Well, you are accepting it as fact because it looks like an apple, it smells like an apple, it tastes like an apple, it fits your previous definition of what has been explained to you as an apple, therefore you understand it, which is fine, and we accept that, that is truth. So for me, if I see somebody holding an apple and they say, I'm holding an apple, this is true, I will say, yes, that is true. But now let's talk about how you came to know this is an apple. Well, quite simply, because when you were a child, you identified it as an apple. Why did you identify it as an apple when you were a child? Because someone said to you, A for apple. Now, the first time they said it, it may have been from a book in a picture. And you see the picture of an apple, you see the word apple, you associate the word with the object. Fair enough. But how did that allow you to identify the apple? Then what happened was you saw the object, and then when you looked at it, you were able to also realize other features about it. You noticed its hardness, the firmness of the apple, the smoothness of the peel. You noticed the roughness inside, the taste and the flavor, the fragrance, the liquid that comes out of it when you bite into it, the crunch that you hear when you bite it. All this information is helping your brain to know this is an apple, but all of that information is sensory. That means you touched it, you smelt it, you tasted it, you saw it, you used your senses. Therefore, in childhood, when you are about 1 and 2 years old, you build a sensory database of everything around you. Have you seen the child, excuse me, Going through the exploring age, when the child learns to move and crawl, the child has an inherent curiosity. Let me see what this object is. Let me see what that object is. It goes through a phase of touching everything. The child is building their sensory database. Anything new they haven't touched, they have a need to touch it. This is because their nature is to learn. Their brain is telling them, touch this, touch that, so that the brain can gain a sensory database. Now, even years later, when the child is in college and a professor is explaining an abstract concept about astrophysics, the child, even at that time, when they are 23 years old doing their master's in astrophysics, will still be applying the sensory database they learned when they were 1 or 2. The professor will talk about the star in a way. The professor will say there's an explosion. The student will think about explosion. Why does the student know what explosion is? Because when they were young, they learned about things that had to do with compactness and spreading and loud noises and forces. That means that everything that you do, even in your complex adulthood, in your processing, in your analyzing, is based upon a database that you made when you were 2 years old. And that's why after you touch everything, you want to taste everything. You want to put everything in your mouth to taste it. We notice that if the child is seeing a wall, the child will go to the socket in the wall. Then the child will go to put their hand in the hole, and sometimes we'll save them from electrocuting themselves. What is this need? Why doesn't the child touch anything else? The reason is the child has already touched the wall. The child understands what the wall feels like. The database is there. But what is this new plastic rectangle within the wall? I haven't seen this before. The child wants to touch it. Why is there a hole in there? What is in there? What happens if I touch that? The child builds the sensory database. Give the child anything, the child wants to eat it. The child is building a database for their tongue. It is a very complex topic in education, learning, and neurophysiology. And I'm not meaning to get into the depth of it, but just to give us an idea, as those some know better than me and some will ponder upon it, but realize that, associate much of what you understand, know, comprehend, has to do with that influence of sensory database. So, that's how you know and how you come to many truths in your life. These are physical truths. We come to physical truths through sensory information, the 5 senses, and then what our brain interprets from them. But even that, there's a factor of unreliability in it. That's why we always look to witnesses. When 4 witnesses attest to the same thing, then we realize, okay, this means that more likely their sensory information comprehended the same thing. Therefore, it is probably correct. So very sensory we are when it comes to our physical knowledge and what we consider as physical reality and truth. But there is another higher level. There is something called experience. There's something called intuition. And in philosophy, when they talk about how does a human being know, this is one of the first preliminary discussions. Therefore, your intuition, your cognition, your mental processing, what you think, this becomes metaphysical. Therefore, what happens is we can understand physical through our senses. For metaphysical, we have to go here. Now, over here, we know that there's something called aql. Aql is, in a sense, your intellect, and it is considered to be in your brain. From a hadith of our Masumeen, salatu wassalamu alayh, we learn the seat of aql is actually the heart, and not the qalb, but there is, the qalb is this metaphysical heart, and the fuad is your literal heart. And therefore, when we talk about the metaphysical heart, that is the seat of our mental processes. Everything you are thinking, thoughts coming, going, you're blocking thoughts, you're encouraging thoughts, it's in this qalb. The brain, which we see as a physical entity, becomes a manifestation of your qalb. Therefore, what happens is, for example, if somebody is using a computer, and I give the example of games, as children play games. I see children when they play computer, video games on TV, etc. There is a character in the game that they are controlling with a remote controller in their hand. The character in the game is responding to them. They decide what that character is going to do. When you look at the child and say, is that you? Then the child says, no, that's not me. That is just a character in this video game. It is a two-dimensional coloring. It's not a real entity. It's not me. It's computer programming. Yes, but you seem to be controlling it. You are deciding what it is going to do. Yes, I have control over it. As long as I'm holding this control and as long as the game is on, I can decide what it does, but it's not me and I am not him. It is simply an application that I'm using. So therefore, when you look at your body as well, what you see is that within you is the metaphysical you, and it is controlling the physical you. In this khutbah, especially in these lines that I want to go through here, you'll see that Imam Ali salatu wassalamu alayhi points to that. He points to also recognizing yourself. For the deen, awwalud dini ma'rifatuhu, and this who in this, as translators and our ulama tell us, points to Allah. Therefore, ma'rifatuhu is saying that we have to gain ma'rifat of who, and who is Allah, the same who is qul hu Allahu ahad. So we are gaining ma'rifat of him, but we are also gaining ma'rifat of ourselves in that, because it is only through understanding ourselves that we come to understand him. And understanding ourselves, we have to realize what is the true you, and what, like the video game character, is being controlled by you. So is this arm you? Is this leg you? Is this face you? This is the question. Is all of this you, or is none of this you? And are you separate from this? So these are questions that I want to answer as we go through this. And it also ties into your ultimate truth. So what you know as true and what you base your life upon is really two things. There is the sensory faculties, through which you learn about the physical realities around you, and there is your aql, and your aql is basically allowing you to learn about the metaphysical. Therefore, the better your aql is, the more you will benefit. And aql is something that is, you use your abilities when you're using your aql. That means aql is something that can increase. It can be expanded. You become better at it, just like when you practice anything. So that's important to understand. And for our students, our young ones who are out there in the world, they're facing things like atheism, they're facing debates, they're facing people who have looked at the physical realities of the world using their sensory faculties, and then using their aql, they have come to the conclusion that there is no metaphysical reality. They have denied any metaphysical. It is hypocrisy. It is hypocrisy to, I'm being harsh, but pardon me, it is hypocrisy to use your aql, which is metaphysical, and by that deny metaphysical. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the ultimate metaphysical, he's not physical, he has created physical. And therefore he created your aql, and using your aql, you are denying the creator of your aql. Do you see how you are relying on a metaphysical reality? Your intellect is metaphysical, it is not physical. That means if you're going to use metaphysical, how can you deny the metaphysical? It doesn't make sense. That's like, for example, when your aql is metaphysical, there's many other metaphysical things too. Happiness, sadness, fear, hope, conviction, belief, remorse, joy, happiness. All of these things are metaphysical. Sorrow. And every one of these emotions, these thoughts, metaphysical, we use them to deny the metaphysical. So, awwalud dini ma'rifatuhu. The first step in this is ma'rifah, and also the ultimate. So we have to reach his ma'rifah, and it is something that we continue with. The deen starts with his ma'rifah, and as we gain his ma'rifah, as we gain his knowledge and understanding of him, then we are getting higher and higher. My young ones, whenever you do something in life that you enjoy, I ask you the question, why did you enjoy it? For example, you like to go play with your friends and you enjoy that. You like to go and play games. You like to have food that you enjoy and do various things, etc. Whatever it is you happen to enjoy, you notice that your life, your day, 24-hour cycle, 16 hours you're awake. Some of that is spent doing things you enjoy. Some of that is spent doing things you do not enjoy. I ask you this. When you are enjoying something, why are you enjoying it? Remember the first homework. What do you like and what do you not like? When you look at it from a neurochemical level, you will see that neurology says that when you enjoy something, dopamine is released. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain that makes you feel good. When you enjoy something, serotonin is released. When you enjoy things, your adrenaline might be released. These are hormones and chemicals that are causing your joy. Therefore, your joy is very chemical. The chemical joy is sensory. The chemical joy is physical. It is not metaphysical. And who gave you that? Who designed your brain to enjoy this video game, that food, these friends, this type of environment? And why? Who designed your brain to release dopamine when that happens? And therefore now you feel the joy. What is drugs? People get drug addictions and ruin their lives sometimes. And many times we see it leads to destruction of lives and families. These drugs can be very powerful because what do? They cause a release of chemicals in your brain that allows you to enjoy certain things without having to go through the natural process of enjoying them. So you are now feeling that release of the chemicals without going through the process. So the drug addict is sitting somewhere in a dark corner injecting themselves, and they go through the process of euphoria, as we call it, the feeling of enjoyment and bliss, without actually having to meet people, without talking to people, without playing a game, without enjoying a food. And therefore, now that is the extreme. That's the extreme of chemical enjoyment. So if we limit ourselves to sensory, physical, chemical reality, we will always never reach our true goal. For Allah has created you to rise above the physical, above the chemical. Your realm is the universe and beyond. It is not limited to a bit of dopamine in your brain. I say to you, my young ones, that realize and believe and understand and contemplate this, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his magnificence, his greatness, his infinite wisdom, in his might and majesty, is able to allow you to enjoy a simple act in your day just because it is programming from him that releases chemicals in your brain to be associated with that, and that is a test for you. There are some things, my young ones, that your eyes should not look upon. There are some things that your hand should not touch. There are some places that your feet should not go. But he has enticed you and tested you by putting the programming in your brain so that you feel that pleasure, that chemical. And he is asking you, is Allah really Akbar? You say Allahu Akbar, but am I really Akbar? Is Allah Akbar to the dopamine released in the brain, to the serotonin, to the euphoria? If he is, we will sacrifice it. And then what we will do is we will realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who can put so much joy, and it's not so much joy, but it seems like so much joy, who can put that joy in sinful activities, or not sinful, but simple physical activities, could he not put that joy in his worship? Could he not have caused massive amounts of neurotransmitters to be released by your brain every time you went into sajda? And if he did that, I assure you, everybody would be in sajda all the time. No one would be enticed to go and go and entertain themselves there, to waste their time there. No, they would put their head in sajda. It is as Imam Ali salatu wassalamu alayhi said, that if you knew how much mercy Allah is bestowing upon you when you are in prostration to him, oh, slave of Allah, you would never lift your head from that prostration. Now this is true bliss. That means that he has tested you with these chemicals, but if you climb over them, you say Allahu Akbar, you want to gain his ma'rifah, can he not put the same blessing and joy in his ibadah? And that is the ibadat of the arifin. That is why it is said by our Imam Ali salatu wassalam, it is said that the sleep of the arif, the sleep of the one who believes, the sleep of the one who believes in Allah and strives to understand him is superior to 1,000 nights of worship of the one who does not comprehend, the one who does not understand, because it is an understanding that we reach him. It is not in the sajda that we reach him. It is in the understanding that we reach him. Therefore, if I do sajda, it will not improve my understanding. But if I understand him, it will improve my sajda. And when I understand him more, I will not want to raise my head from sajda. and the true joy and bliss that our ma'sumin felt in qiyam, ruku, and sujood before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I cannot even begin to imagine. For I am but a struggling mortal, weak. And for me, the test is just, can I stand up for salah? Can I stand and say Allahu Akbar and the takbir? But for those who find joy in it, we look at our blessed elders and the wise ones of our community, the ones who have gained in holiness, our ulama, the ones who enjoy the worship of Allah. They are enjoying it more, and they are feeling more pleasure, my young ones, than we might feel when we are outside kicking the soccer ball into the goal. I'm not saying you should not enjoy life, enjoy games and sports. All of them are for you from Allah. He has given you this body to improve it, to exercise it, to gain in control of it. But the ultimate goal, Awwaluddin, is his ma'rifah. And understand that there is great joy in that. For sometimes a young one might say, and they say this, I think, with some basis. It is a good and valid thing to say, and that is, perhaps if we say, okay, so I know him, now what? You know, it's a bit selfish. There's a little bit of selfish. Okay, so I know Allah, now how does that help me? What am I supposed to do now? Do I keep on knowing him? Well, let me ask you this. Why do you do anything? Why do you do anything in life? Why do you play with your friends? Because you enjoy it. Okay. Why do you go to school? Because you want to work, and you have to raise a family, you have to be independent. That's what society teaches you to do, etc. So everything we are doing for these basic purposes. It's the same thing with ma'rifah. Is there enjoyment in it? Most certainly there is. And what it does is it allows you to come to your true existence. Through his ma'rifah, you gain more. You, in this world, you want to build a home, you go to school to do that, you go to work, you work hard, and you end up building a home and raising a family. Well, there is a home for you in Jannah as well. How will you build that home? You will not build that home by applying and working with corporations here. We're going to build that home by ma'rifah. That home is built by ma'rifah. That means that the ultimate, I struggle, I want to make a home of a few thousand square feet. He wants to give me a whole world. So ma'rifah. And that's why he said that I am a treasure that is hidden. The Hadith Qudsi says, I am a treasure that is hidden, and I desire to be known. And that's why if you look at that Hadith Qudsi, which is the basis of the origin of creation of everything, Kuntu kanzan makhfiya, harbabtu an urufa, khalaqtu ma khalaq. I was a hidden treasure, I desired to be known, I created what I created. And Imam Ali says, Awwaluddin ma'rifatuhu. Therefore, he muhabbabtu an urafa, he desired to be known. Your religion is to know him. Everything is to know him. That means that when we know him, we fulfill our existence. And when you fulfill your existence, you come into being. You come into the true being of your power. Allah has put so much power within the human ruh, and that your power is great in there, but it is metaphysical and it is spiritual. Your physical is but a drop in the ocean of power that is found in your ruh. Therefore, we have to cultivate the metaphysical. And when we are always living in the physical realities, it is hard to do that. So we want to gain his ma'rifah, but the question is, how do we gain his ma'rifah? So we see here, last week we talked about this as well, that recognition is sometimes part of the definition of ma'rifah. When we talk about recognition, we say that recognition means you identify something. That means there are physical realities and you connect it with the metaphysical. So this is ma'rifah. Connecting the physical with the metaphysical is what starts the process of our ma'rifah. I do not ever claim to define ma'rifat, because the arif is the one who understands ma'rifat, and it is of a very high level to get there. And that station to be there is to have the perspective and to look down as someone like me who is climbing the ladder, struggling, sometimes falling down, standing back up, always trying to ascend. I can only talk about it from my limited perspective. So to any arifin, I do not in any way mean to belittle the definition. I'm simply taking it from a very basic standpoint of view for our children. And as we are gaining ma'rifah, the kamal of ma'rifah is to do tasdeeq bihi. Tasdeeq is to testify. Tasdeeq is what we do when we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That is a very powerful statement. That statement enters you into belief. That statement allows you to now enter into this place where you are being tested. Do you see that the world is a testing place? Our children, our students, they go out into the community and they see people who look at the sensory world and then connect it to a metaphysical denial. They say, no, there is no tasdeeq, there is no Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not ma'rifah. That is not using your aql. Aql is metaphysical. The one who denies Allah has not used their aql. They have not gone to that which we call aql, because aql is something that is very beautiful, and it is the ability that Allah has bestowed upon you so that you can gain ma'rifah. My young ones will be impressed by scientists who have much knowledge, and through this knowledge in their PhDs, they have come to find that Allah does not exist. They have said that we, in all of our knowledge of physics, have seen the universe, have created the formulas that understand the universe. And through this knowledge and this science, we have reached the evidence that there is no Allah. They have reached the evidence, although they don't have evidence. The scientists sometimes also say that the absence of evidence, because they say, well, there is no evidence for Allah, so the evidence is absent, so therefore we cannot accept him. Yes, but that doesn't mean that you should deny his existence. To deny it is now something a step further, because the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Just because you do not have evidence of Allah in your science lab does not mean that that is evidence that Allah is absent. So the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Rather, it is the evidence that you do not have the sensory information to detect him. Obviously, he is not physical. He is metaphysical. You cannot detect him through your senses. You must use your aql. Therefore, aql becomes your primary power. Aql becomes the means by which we will gain this. And that is the problem. People have not understood aql. We see the one with PhDs and we think they have aql. However, according to our Imam, according to the Quran, according to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, what we can see is that no, they have used their sensory database, they have much memory, they have good memory and they have good knowledge, but that knowledge is, as the Quran says in Surah Jum'ah, it says that they are but donkeys laden with books. If you have spent your whole life in learning about the universe, you've created objects that can reach the moon, yet despite that you say there is no Allah, that to me tells me that you have not used your aql. Allah did bestow some upon you, you did not use it. Instead, you limited yourself to the physical realities. And we see that. Do we not see that Imam Ali Raza, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, is called to the darbar of Harun. And when he goes to Harun Rashid's palace and he enters, hundreds of scholars are seated. These were the scholars that Harun Rashid would often invite for debates and so on. And so when they were seated, they had been discussing for 3 days. They had spent discussing the definition of aql. And after 3 days, they had reached their ultimate definition. And they presented the definition. And it was good in some ways. A definition is good when it is simple. A definition is good when it accurately describes something. And so they had come up with a simple definition. So from that aspect, there was benefit in it. But Harun Rashid said, wait, let us call Yabna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let us see what he has to say. These people were strange. On the one hand, they called our holy imams Yabna Rasulullah. On the other hand, they martyred them. You admit someone is the son of the Prophet, yet you also choose to end them through zulm because of your greed. What strange characters in history we find. And so our imam approaches. Our imam is seated. When our imam sits down, they tell our imam, our holy Imam alayhi salam, they say, Yabna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our definition for aql we have come up with, we wanted to ask you what you think. And the thought was that the Imam would not be able to come up with a definition better, and the Imam would accept their definition. As every time they said something, the Imam always alayhi salam came up with something better. Therefore, they thought that this time we will win. There was always this need in them. They did not want to learn. They didn't want to benefit. They didn't want ma'rifah. They just simply wanted to win some cheap victory. And so what happens is they say, oh, master, we have decided that aql is the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. What is right? What is wrong? Our Imam smiles and our Imam says, tell me this, does not even the animal know what is right and wrong? Does not the dog know where to sit, where to stand, where to eat, where not to eat? Even the animal knows what is good for them and what is bad for them, what is right for them and what is wrong for them. Does this dog have aql? Does the animal have aql? Now they are quiet. What do we say? I don't know. They say, okay, master, you tell us, what is aql? The Imam says that when there's two things presented before you and one of them is greater than the other, or two things look good, but you're not sure which one is better and which one is less. There's two things that are bad. Which one is worse? Which one is less? And therefore, distinguishing between that is aql. So it is not about right and wrong, but when there's two things that are right and you want to decide which one, it's like when we do ibadat. We want to, should I do this ibadat or that ibadat? This is sawab, that is sawab. Which one is better? Which one is worse? In our Sharia, some things are more guna, some things are less guna. So this is how we gain aql. And then our Imam smiles, stands up and leaves. As our Imam leaves, his companion is with him. And the companion says, oh master, that was magnificent. How you made all of them quiet in but one sentence. And their 3 days of work was finished. And all they came up with was with that, and you corrected them immediately. Holy Imam alayhi salam says to him, you should know that I have not even given them the true definition of aql yet, for they were not worthy. And then he says, oh master, can you tell me? And the Imam says, yes, I will tell you. The true definition of aql. Aql is that ability by which a believer recognizes his Imam. And that is why we say, Man mata wa lam ya'arif imam zamanihi. The one who dies but does not recognize his Imam has died the death of Jahiliyyah. Therefore, we see that aql is essential for ma'rifah. My young ones, build your aql. The more you spend time in the sensory world, the weaker your aql becomes. The more you spend time in the metaphysical world, the more your aql becomes. It becomes stronger. Know that aql is an ability like your strength, and you exercise to get stronger, faster. Your aql also, the more you use it through ruhani exercise. And what is the best exercise for your aql? It is contemplation. Think, ponder, ask questions about the physical realities to understand the metaphysical realities. And this is how we will testify to his existence. And my young ones, know and judge people by this criteria. Your Masumeen have given you this criteria. What the Masumeen have said for me is the ultimate written on stone. The reason, their intellect, their aql is far above ours. It's beyond imagination. Imam Ali salatu wasalam says to Hazrat Salman Muhammadi alayhi salam, and he says, Imam Ali says to Hazrat Salman Muhammadi, oh Salman, tell me, do you know me? Or do you have ma'rifah of me? In other words, do you know that I am who I am Ali ibn Abi Talib, or have you gained full ma'rifah of me? Hazrat Salman Muhammadi says, oh master, how can I gain full ma'rifah of you? And Imam Ali smiles and says, oh Salman, do you know why that is? And Hazrat Salman Muhammadi says, oh master, tell me, why is that? Imam Ali salatu wasalam says, oh Salman, before all of creation, we were there. And Allah, when he brought us into existence before the universe, then our aql we were already there, and we were aql. That means that in that nur was aql. That nur is aql. So Imam Ali is aql. Not that he has intellect, not that he will gain in intellect, not that he will go to school and study. When Allah created aql, that aql is the nur Muhammadi, nur ma'sumin. And from that, but one little iota was taken for human beings. And Imam Ali says, oh Salman, you were not created, your aql did not come into existence, and we were worshipping Allah. How can we truly fathom and understand things that are beyond our universal realities? Very difficult. But in understanding that you cannot understand, there is something very beautiful. Because that is how we come to understand Allah. وَكَمَالُ مَعْرِفَتِهِ تَصْدِيقُ بِهِ. And I will come to that part, I think, next week, because even here, I have managed to stay on this one line for the duration. But the kamal of ma'rifah is when you do that. And my main takeaway message for my young ones is this: know, my young ones, that when you meet somebody and they seem very knowledgeable, understand that Allah has compared the Quran, the people who have knowledge but don't use it and apply it, as donkeys laden with books. They are but like in modern language, they're like a USB. A USB has all the information in the world. You can put it on your table. It's not going to do anything. You, when it is installed in you, then you act upon it. Then you change your perspective upon it. And if someone says to you, they seem very knowledgeable, and they say to you, there is no Allah, know that they have not used aql. Now, if you are influenced by them, you are being influenced by one who is lesser, who is restricting themselves to the physical reality. They will not allow you to reach your full destination, your full purpose. Allah has created you for far more than what is happening here. So tasdeeq is important. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That means that when we look at the physical reality and you realize that there is a metaphysical reality that is greater than this, that caused this, and you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that is with conviction. It is not something that is said just when someone becomes a Muslim or when they are whispering into someone's ear. Otherwise, we don't say the kalima. When you see the perfection in nature, say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. When you see the perfection in the revolution of the stars, the movement of the moon and the sun, the perfection of the seasons, when you see the perfection within your body in science, everything you study, you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And that is with conviction. It is something that should be with every beat of your heart. And then Islam becomes installed as your operating system, not as an application, but as something that will influence every application you apply now. And so therefore you will be able to live your life with the Islamic perspective, because all you have in life is your perspective. This should be yours, own it. Do not let anybody, society, community, peers, social media, no, influence your perspective. Your perspective Allah has given to you. You are responsible for it. You will answer for it. And it will determine every step and every breath you take. And the one who came for such mercy, and the one who was sent to guide us to Allah, the one who came to us and said, Awwaludini ma'rifatuhu, and the one whom Allah sent with the embodiment of all of Allah's qualities, that if we gained ma'rifah of Mawla Ali, we would have gained ma'rifah of Allah. If we had understood Mawla Ali, we would have understood Allah. If we had understood how Allah understood, how Mawla Ali worshipped Allah, then we would have improved in our worship as well. And he came for nothing else. There was no other, his intention was pure. His objective was pure. And what did he do in that? He came to teach us, to guide us. He was far above this world. Perhaps they should not have come. Neither him nor Bibi Zahra, Salamullah alayha. They were for heaven. They were for worlds better than this. But Allah still sent them to us, and they obeyed His command, and they left their abode in Jannah, and they came to live here. And how did we treat them? How did the humans treat the ones who came to guide us? It saddens me greatly when I look upon the narration. A man says that it was the month of Ramzan, the month in which Imam Ali was martyred, the year in which he was martyred. He says that it was Ramzan, and it was perhaps the beginning of Ramzan rather. And he says that I was outside of Kufa. He says, I was walking outside of Kufa and I saw a man walk by in the distance. It was a strange time for someone to be leaving the city like this. And out of curiosity, I followed. The man went to a well. When he went to the well, he put his head into the well and he started to talk to Allah. I could hear him talking to Allah with much lamentation, and he was crying and crying. And I heard these words come from his holy mouth. He said, "Oh Allah, this world has filled my heart with sickness. Oh Allah, these people have diseased my heart. اے میرے رب, اس قوم نے علی کے دل میں پیپ بھر دی ہے. You know what situation that is? That is the situation in which every heartbeat causes you pain. When your life in every moment is just painful. اے میرے معبود, اب علی اس دنیا میں نہیں رہنا چاہتا. یا تو اس قوم کو بدل دے اور مجھے دوسری قوم دے دے, یا اس قوم سے مجھے اڑا ڈالے, ان کو کوئی اور رہنما دے دے. اب علی ان کے درمیان رہنا نہیں چاہتا. What did we do with the master who came? The one who would walk through the streets at night, carrying loaves of bread upon his back to feed who? Most of them were his enemies. Most of them would be cursing upon him in the day, and he would feed their hungry stomachs at night. Who was the one who took milk for the orphans in their homes? Who was the one who helped the widows and the helpless? It was only him. If only we had understood him. And his words collected in this book are great and magnificent indeed. May they benefit us, and may we continue to learn for them. Assalamu alaikum. فسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. Thank you, and I will start over here.
جزاکاللہ مولانا, اللہ آپ کو سلامت رکھے اور آپ کو آپ کے فیملی ممبرس کو صحت دے اور ہر وقت سلامت رکھے, اور جو ہے آپ ایسے اچھی مجالس, and what masterpiece majlis was today, and the discussion, we have to record this, and it's recorded. Pass it to your friends, relatives, and this will be going on forever. Sawab Jariya. So we are opening the floor for question answers, and this is the purpose of life, to do something which will stay with the Mu'mineen for a long time to come. Moulana, please, some participants will be asking some questions from you and clarifying their doubts. Please go ahead and ask Moulana.
I have a comment very beautifully, very eloquently. You have described beautiful. Very nice speech.
Thank you so much. آپ کا حسن ہے, آپ کا لطف کرم ہے میرے اوپر. Thank you so much. جزاک اللہ. جزاک اللہ قمر عبدی صاحب.
مصطفیٰ بھائی, آپ ان سے مزید استفادہ کریں, ہم سب ان سے, اور اس 5 مجالس کے بعد بھی ان کو زحمت دیجیے. اگر یہ قبول کریں تو ہماری قوم کے لیے بہت اچھا رہے گا.
جی, ہم تھوڑے اسپانسرز کو ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں, تو
میں اسپانسر کرنے تیار ہوں سرکار, میرے نام لکھ دیجیے.
جی شکریہ. یونس بھائی سے کنیکٹ ہو جائیے آپ, اور ہم جو ہے
میں ریچ آؤٹ کر لوں گا.
جزاک اللہ. اور ہمارے ڈاکٹر اسد صادق بھی ہیں, کا آپ آ سکتے ہیں. ڈاکٹر اسد صادق, کین یو کم؟ تو اینی کامنٹس فرام اینی ون ایلس؟ قمر بھائی, آپ کا ہر وقت رہتے ہیں, آپ سپورٹ کرتے ہیں, تو دیٹس ویری نائس آف یو. اینڈ الحمدللہ ہمارے بولے تھے نانا اور جو بھی لوگ اس پہ نہج البلاغہ پہ کام کیے تھے, اس کا مشن ہم جو ہے اس کو آگے لے کے بڑھنا ہے انشاءاللہ.
بے شک. We need speakers like Moulana Farat Muswi Sahab, Moulana Shaeba, Dr. Shaeba Rizvi Sahab. We need people like them, you know. ان کے دل میں درد ہے قوم کا, اور I can see through his each sentence how much he is instilling, every Islam has instilled in him so much. الحمدللہ اس کا اظہار محسوس ہوتا ہے ہر हर जुमले से कितना दर्द है और कितना विलायत इनमें भरी हुई है और जो उसका इजहार फरमा रहे हैं माशाल्लाह माशाल्लाह
We also have
Assalamualaikum, everybody.
Alaikum
yes,
assalam.
Walaikum Salam.
Ji, Mustafa bhai, I have a question for Moulana Sahab.
Ji.
So my question is, like at the end of the lecture, Moulana said that Maula Ali alayhi salam went to the well and he was talking with Allah. And he was asking Allah to either change the people or then call him back to Allah. So I have a question here, that does this not portray that Imam Ali had given up? He was no more ready to take challenges? I mean, I got that type of impression with these words. So is there any specific way of explaining this?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. That is, I think, a very relevant question and very important. Absolutely. And in that question, I think we'll clear up a lot of confusion. So thank you for asking that. And I find
very
that,
good question.
Yes. It is important to, of course, we should state some of the things that, of course, I'm sure you know better than me, and especially the esteemed and honorable Moulana, who has asked the question, also knows better than me. Imam Ali salatu wassalamu alayhi is the irada of Allah. He is the qudrat of Allah. He is the will of Allah. And they have said that in many places. So that means that when Imam Ali salatu wassalamu alayhi is saying something, it would not be in objection to Allah's will. It would not be an objection to his command. Because for me, in my perspective, when he says that nahnu iradatullah, we are the irada of Allah. Therefore, I see that Allah does not have intentions that are changing. I see that Allah is not one who is going to have intentions the way we do. When we talk about Allah's intentions, it is just one magnificent intention within the oneness of his being. This means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intending things is not like me. If I have an intention today, it is fulfilled. Tomorrow, I will not intend it because my intention was fulfilled. I intended to visit somebody. I visited them. I come back home. My intention is done. If Allah intends to create the world, or Allah intends to give rizq, or Allah intends to put people in Jannah or Jahannam, then these intentions are being fulfilled. And then what happens is there's a change in them. But Allah never changes. Therefore, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his creation of the universe, he also put his intentions here in the form of the Masumin. Now, what the Masumin will change in their intentions, the Masumin will manifest the intentions. That means that when one is fulfilled, there will be a next and a next and so on. So if I think they are the irada of Allah, the intention of Allah, therefore, no, I do not think that Imam Ali salatu wassalamu alayhi has given up. And you're right. From this, it might seem like that. It's important to realize that whenever the Masumin have said something and it has through a narration reached us, then there's also a reason for it reaching us, and there's a reason for them saying it. So when the Masumin salatu wassalamu alayhim are saying something, they are aware of who is listening, who is around them. They are aware of who they are going to tell. They are aware of where it's going to be said. Imam Ali, as the Medina, as the Babul Ilm of the city of knowledge, is one who is aware even that in Nahjul Balagha these words will be written, and who will read these words. As our master said these words from the Mimbar Kufa, he knew that we would be discussing this today. That is the knowledge that Allah bestows upon the A'immah and the Masumin, and upon the prophets whom he chooses. In the Quran, as it says, he gives them a ghaib, alim al-ghaibi, and then he goes on to say that indeed he does. So I think that, from this, what we see is that what I learned from this is that the people were very hurtful to our Imam. And when people disobey our Imam, it is hurtful to them. So I do not take from this that Imam Ali in any way would have given up, or Imam Ali in any way would fall short of patience and forbearance in fulfilling Allah's will. But what I do take from this is that it is possible for us as believers in an Imam to disobey and hurt his feelings and to cause him pain. It is possible for him to feel that anguish. And that means that, I urge our young ones that when our Imam alayhi salam of our time is reading the our deeds every Thursday, that he receives them or is seeing us doing them all the time, then it is also hurting him. So that's why I think that some things are set to explain the emotional aspect of it, and but I don't take them in a literal sense, because that is a relationship between Allah and His hujjat, and that is something that is so united that we can't separate them. I hope my answer made some sense. If it doesn't, please do follow up. I would like to clarify.
It's exactly like, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Permission. It's exactly saying that Imam Ali says in Dua Kumail, Ana Abduka Zaiful Zalilul Haqirul Miskin. But he is not. And do we believe that that's how he was feeling? He is the Haqir and Zalil and Faqir thing. This is how he is narrating. He is in the form of human being too. He is
Exactly.
Masum and Mutlaq, but at the same time, he is
That's,
telling the same thing.
that's only for us to understand.
Yes.
No, yeah, I understand. See, in Dua Kumail, Maula is comparing with Allah. So in front of Allah, obviously he is Haqir, Zalil and everything, because that's what he's doing. But here, the incident of well, I mean, I understand Maulana's explanation. I also believe that. I'm not saying I'm not believing it. But from a perspective of a general person, if we say in front of a general person in this way, it brings that impression and portrays that Maula had finally given up. He didn't wanted to lead them anymore. He didn't wanted to accept the challenges. That shows a little type of weakness, as a general, what do you call it, dunyavi way. Okay, so that's why I wanted to clarify this with Maulana.
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you said that, because as often happens in any of these types of situations where one person is speaking and many are listening, then it's always, as a speaker, you try to envision every interpretation that will come up, and sometimes you don't. And therefore, because of your feedback, it allows me to make sure that if I ever repeat something like that, I repeat it with clarification, or I make sure I'm aware that it may be misinterpreted and it may come out negatively. So I absolutely appreciate that. Thank you.
We have Brother Hussain Ali from Tanzania who has joined us today. Is it possible, brother, you could come on the question answer session? What is your input on this program and how you could help us in Tanzania? And also Dr. Asad Sadek has joined us today. Your comments on the program?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Walaikum salam.
I was a bit late for the program. I apologize, but I really enjoyed last time. I really enjoyed the talk. How are you?
Jazakallah. Spread the message in Tanzania.
Yes, definitely.
And we have this on the YouTube, and it is our mission to carry this message in
Alhamdulillah.
this day.
It's a very what do you call? It really refreshes our mind. You see about Nahjul Balagha.
Yes. Thank you
very much. I was a bit late today in joining, but I will look up on the YouTube the whole lecture of Moulana Sahib as well.
Yes, and pass on your comments on the YouTube and on this group so that others get motivated with your feelings, with your mission we have to carry all over the world. Alhamdulillah, Moulana, Jazakallah again.
Jazakallah. How are you keeping? How is the family, Mustafa?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Oh,
Okay.
you're the doctor from Tanzania, is
Yes,
it?
yes, yes.
Oh, mashallah, he's an optimist. My son, another doctor is here. My son, he's Muhammad Musavi. So,
Oh,
yes, Alhamdulillah. You have done an amazing impression on me when I was in your same room
Alhamdulillah.
doing the
Alhamdulillah.
IMI mission. So, Alhamdulillah, a lot of charity work comes from Dr. Hussain Ali from Tanzania. Alhamdulillah. Pray
Thank you.
for him. Thank you.
Inshallah, I'll be watching every time you are on the Zoom.
Okay, inshallah. I have another session every Saturday. I have done 4 yoga on chair. So please
Yes.
go and
Thank
watch
you.
that.
I'll visit that as well. Yeah.
Inshallah.
I know you are a health expert. I know that.
Yes. I can't just figure out who is this. You are a very humble guy, humble person.
Shukran.
Dr. Hussain Ali, so is an Alhamdulillah very eye specialist from Tanzania. Thank you, brother. Anyone
Shukran.
else who wants to come and give some comments on this program, please come forward.
Thank you, Moulana. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you, Moulana, for an excellent speech. I'm learning a lot from your speech. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants.
And
Jazakumullah khairan.
yes, my sister is one of the sponsors. Pray for her family and lastly, we pray for all the participants and the relatives and all the ummah, the mankind, to help us in this pandemic, and Surah Fatiha for all the marhumin and all the participants. Forefathers who have passed away, or the parents, the relatives who have passed away. So Surah Fatiha and Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد لم يلد ولم يولد. Brother Khamar Abedi, can you recite the salam, and inshallah we will end our session today, and see you next week, inshallah. Brother Khamar Abedi.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-hujjati al-hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala abayhi. Fi hadhihi sa'a wa fi kulli sa'a. Waliyan wa hafizan wa qaidan wa nasira. Wa dalilan wa aina hatta tuskinahu wa arzaka taw'a. Wa tumatti'ahu fiha tabila. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى अल्लाह आप सबको सलामत रखे और आप सबकी इबादत कबूल फरमाए.
सलाम पढ़ा दीजिए.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. मुतवज्जे सलाम. अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दुल्लाह. अस्सलामु अलैका इब्न रसूलिल्लाह. अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू. अस्सलामु अलैका या अबुल फज़ल अब्बास अमीरुल मोमिनीन. अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू. अस्सलामु अलैका या गरीब अल ग़ुरबा. अस्सलामु अलैका या मुइन अज़-ज़ुअफ़ा वल फ़ुक़रा. अस्सलामु अलैका या शम्स अश-शुमूस यानी सन-नफूस. अस्सलामु अलैका अल मदफ़ून बिअर्ज़तूस. अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू. अस्सलामु अलैका या साहिब अज़्ज़ ज़मान. अल-अमान मिन फ़ितनतिज़ ज़मान. अस्सलामु अलैका इमाम ज़मानिना हाज़ा अजलल्लाहु तआला फ़रजक व सहलल्लाहु तआला मख़रजक व ज़हूरक. अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू.